Today, let's talk about Cao Cao, a pivotal figure who rose during the chaotic final years of the Eastern Han Dynasty and ultimately laid the foundation for the Cao Wei state. Cao Cao is an extremely complex character. He possessed the grand strategy and heroic spirit of someone aiming to right the world, but also the ruthless and suspicious nature of an ambitious warlord. His life is a living history of entrepreneurship during the late Han and Three Kingdoms period, filled with dramatic turns, difficult choices, and profound contradictions. To understand that turbulent period of history, Cao Cao is an absolutely essential figure. Cao Cao was born in the first year of Emperor Huan's Yongshou era, which is 155 AD. His hometown was Qiao County in the Pei Kingdom, which is modern-day Boizhou in Anhui Province. The Cao family was no ordinary household at the time. They had a very deep background. His father, Cao Song, held a high office, eventually becoming the Grand Marshal, Taiwei. This was the highest military commander in the nation, one of the three excellencies, a position of extreme prestige. However, there was something not quite legitimate about Cao Song's position. He had become prominent by becoming the adopted son of the powerful Grand Eunuch, Cao Teng. Therefore, in the eyes of the established aristocratic families who valued pure lineage, Cao Cao's origins were somewhat tainted. He was looked down upon by those families of high-ranking officials, who called him a descendant of a eunuch's foul lineage. This background had a significant impact on Cao Cao's later personality, which was a mix of extreme pride, sensitivity, and even a rebellious streak. Imagine, a man of his immense talent constantly being judged by his birth. How could he not harbor some resentment? In his youth, Cao Cao was certainly not a well-behaved child who followed the rules. In the words of the historical records, he was chivalrous and unrestrained, neglecting his proper duties. What does this mean? It means he enjoyed the company of wandering gallants, idled his days away, and didn't focus on his studies or career. His uncle, unable to watch this any longer, frequently complained to his father, Cao Song, saying the boy was out of line. When Cao Cao found out, he was very displeased. One day, seeing his uncle approaching from a distance, he immediately pretended to have a seizure with his mouth and eyes twisted. His uncle was shocked and rushed to tell Cao Song. When Cao Song hastily summoned his son, he found him perfectly fine. Cao Cao seized the opportunity and said, "I was never sick. It must be that uncle dislikes me, so he's always speaking ill of me." From then on, Cao Song no longer trusted his brother's words. You see, at a young age, Cao Cao already displayed his resourceful and cunning nature. However, although he was mischievous, Cao Cao was not entirely uninterested in books and martial arts. He especially loved reading military treatises and was fascinated by the great military strategists of history. He also read widely among the various schools of thought. At the same time, his skills in horse riding and archery were considerable. He was physically strong and exceptionally brave. These skills laid the foundation for his future struggles in a chaotic world. At the age of 20 in 174 AD, Cao Cao was nominated as a filial and incorrupt candidate and officially began his career. His first post was commandant of the northern district of Luoyang. Luoyang was the capital, and this position was equivalent to the police chief of a district in the capital. This was not an easy job. The capital was filled with powerful nobles, imperial relatives, and high officials who acted with impunity. A minor commandant could easily offend someone and lose his life, but Cao Cao was not afraid. He was young and ambitious, determined to restore order. Upon taking office, he had a dozen multicolored clubs made and hung them by the main gate of his office, posting a notice: anyone who violates the law, regardless of who they are, will be beaten to death with these clubs. This was no idle threat. Before long, someone tested him. The uncle of Jian Shua, Emperor Ling's most favored eunuch, relying on his nephew's power, brazenly carried a knife and wandered around at night, seriously violating the curfew. Without a second thought, Cao Cao ordered his arrest and had him beaten to death on the spot with the multicolored clubs. This act stirred up a hornet's nest, shocking the entire capital. The eunuch faction was furious, but Cao Cao had acted according to the law and had earned a reputation for not fearing the powerful. For a time, Jian Shua and his associates couldn't find a legal pretext to punish him. Unable to get him openly, they resorted to covert means. The eunuchs spoke ill of him to the emperor and finally found an excuse to transfer him out of the capital, sending him to be the magistrate of Duanxiu, modern-day Qingfeng, Hunan, far from the political center. This experience gave the young Cao Cao his first profound understanding of the court's darkness and corruption. It also spread his reputation for being fearless and strict in enforcing the law, which helped him accumulate some political capital. Later, Cao Cao was recalled to the court to serve as a court gentleman Yilang, a position mainly responsible for advising the emperor and commenting on politics. In this role, Cao Cao did his duty. Seeing the court in disarray due to the eunuch's influence, he boldly submitted memorials, pleading for the posthumous rehabilitation of upright ministers like Dou Wu and Chen Fan, who had been unjustly executed in the partisan prohibition's disaster years earlier. He also bluntly criticized the emperor's poor choice of officials, pointing out that it was the inaction of high-ranking officials like the Three Excellencies that led to treacherous individuals holding power and the court falling into chaos. These memorials, as one might expect, were like stones dropped into the sea. Emperor Ling was busy selling offices and titles to amass wealth. How could he have time to listen to the harsh truths from a minor court gentleman? This once again left Cao Cao deeply disappointed and powerless. He saw that the great edifice of the Eastern Han Dynasty was rotten to the core and could not be saved by minor repairs. He later recalled this period, saying, "I wish to be the governor of a commandery to govern well and build a reputation, so that future generations would know of me." This shows that although Cao Cao was disappointed with the court, he had not completely lost hope and still wanted to achieve something within the system. What truly made Cao Cao lose all faith in the Eastern Han Dynasty and ultimately set him on a different path was the Yellow Turban Rebellion, which broke out in 184 AD. This massive peasant uprising, which swept across the country, dealt a heavy blow to the dynasty's rule. To suppress the rebellion, the court had to order various regions to recruit their own armies. It was at this time that Cao Cao was appointed captain of cavalry, Keduwai, and led a portion of the court's troops to the front lines. Alongside famous generals like Huang Fusong and Zhu Jun, he engaged in fierce battles with the main Yellow Turban forces in the Yingchuan area, modern-day Yuzhou, Hunan. Cao Cao proved to be very brave on the battlefield and tactically adept, earning significant merit. After the war, he was promoted to be the Chancellor of Jinan Kingdom. A chancellor was the highest administrator sent by the central government to manage a vassal kingdom, equivalent to a commandery governor. Upon arriving in Jinan, Cao Cao found the situation even worse than he had imagined. In the dozen or so counties under Jinan's jurisdiction, nearly every magistrate and official was corrupt, colluding with the powerful and perverting justice, leaving the region in chaos. Even more seriously, the area was rife with licentious worship, with over 600 unauthorized temples and shrines. These places had become dens for local magnates and crooked merchants to exploit the common people. Cao Cao acted with swift and decisive force. He impeached and dismissed the magistrates of 8 counties, all of whom were powerful local figures. Then he ordered a ban on the illicit shrines and destroyed all temples that did not conform to official rites. Cao Cao's iron-fisted measures had an immediate effect. The corrupt officials and lawless magnates in Jinan fled to other commanderies in fear. The social order and public morale of the region were renewed and the common people rejoiced. Cao Cao's achievements in Jinan fully demonstrated his outstanding political talent and pragmatic style. However, his reforms also deeply threatened the interests of the local gentry and their backers at court. These people hated him to the bone. Cao Cao himself realized that he could not fight the entire vast and corrupt bureaucracy and aristocracy on his own. Furthermore, the court was now completely controlled by eunuchs and the consort Qin, primarily the Grand General He Jin, and politics had reached a nadir of darkness. Feeling disheartened and fearing for his life if he stayed, Cao Cao feigned illness and resigned his post as Chancellor of Jinan. He returned to his hometown of Qiao County and lived in seclusion. He built a few houses outside the county town, spending his springs and summers studying books and military strategy, and his autumns and winters practicing riding, archery, and hunting. On the surface, he appeared to be a hermit, but in reality he was calmly observing the changing situation, quietly gathering strength and waiting for an opportunity. The opportunity Cao Cao was waiting for soon arrived. In 189 AD, Emperor Ling died. The conflict between the Grand General He Jin and the eunuch faction intensified to a breaking point. In a foolish move to eradicate the eunuchs, He Jin summoned the general Dong Zhuo to lead troops into the capital. As a result, the eunuchs, like cornered dogs, struck first, assassinating He Jin. He Jin's subordinates, Yuan Shao and Yuan Shu, then led troops to storm the palace, slaughtering eunuchs indiscriminately. The scene was one of extreme bloodshed and chaos. In the midst of this turmoil, the young Emperor Liu Bian and his younger brother, the future Emperor Xian, were abducted by eunuchs and fled Luoyang. Dong Zhuo, a northwestern warlord who had long coveted central power, arrived just outside the city with his elite cavalry and encountered the fleeing imperial brothers. Seeing this as a God-sent opportunity, Dong Zhuo took control of the emperor and swaggered into Luoyang, seizing control of the court. Dong Zhuo was extremely cruel. He deposed Emperor Shao and installed the young Liu Xie as Emperor Xian, monopolizing power and appointing himself chancellor. He let his troops run amok in Luoyang, burning, killing and looting. Any court official who showed the slightest dissatisfaction was executed. The entire city was plunged into terror. Dong Zhuo tried to win over Cao Cao, valuing his talent and reputation, and appointed him colonel of the Shaoqi Xiaoji cavalry. But Cao Cao had long seen through Dong Zhuo's wolfish nature and knew that his tyranny would lead to his downfall. Following him meant certain death. So, Cao Cao changed his name and secretly slipped out of Luoyang, escaping the demon's den. Cao Cao's escape was fraught with danger. On his way east, he passed the home of an old friend, Liu Bosch. Liu Bosch was not home, but his sons and guests, seeing Cao Cao traveling with valuables and in a hurry, conceived a plot to rob him. Sensing danger, Cao Cao struck first, drawing his sword and killing several of them. This is the famous incident of the mistaken killing of Liu Bosch's family. There are different accounts of this event, but regardless of the details, it reflects the treachery of human hearts and the brutality of survival in chaotic times. Later, Cao Cao's famous, bleak, and resolute quote, "I would rather betray the world than let the world betray me," was likely born from this environment of extreme tension, betrayal, and bloodshed. It reveals the extreme mentality of a warlord under the laws of survival in a chaotic age, an expression of profound insecurity and a strong self-preservation instinct, and it foreshadowed his later suspicious nature. After many hardships, Cao Cao finally returned to his hometown of Qinlu. He knew that widespread chaos was inevitable and that hiding was useless. He had to have his own power. Using the vast fortune accumulated by his father and with the full support of a local magnate, he began to spend his family wealth to recruit a volunteer army, preparing to launch a campaign against Dong Zhuo. In the first month of 190 AD, governors and inspectors from various provinces east of the Hanggu Pass rose up in arms. They elected Yuan Shao, who had the most illustrious family background, as their leader, forming a grand coalition army to attack Dong Zhuo. Cao Cao joined this alliance with his newly formed troops. However, this spectacular alliance soon revealed its fatal weakness. The various warlords each had their own agenda and wanted to preserve their strength. No one was willing to genuinely fight Dong Zhuo's elite troops. They spent their days feasting and making grand speeches but kept their army stationary. Seeing this, Cao Cao was both anxious and angry. He passionately addressed the other leaders. "We raised righteous armies to eliminate a tyrant. Now that our grand army has assembled, what are you hesitating for? Dong Zhuo has burned the palaces and abducted the Son of Heaven. This is the moment of his doom. If we work together, we can pacify the realm in a single battle. This opportunity must not be missed." But no one listened. Knowing he couldn't rely on them, Cao Cao decided to act alone. He led his several thousand soldiers west, preparing to take the strategic point of Qinggao. However, his forces encountered Dong Zhuo's main army led by General Su Rong. Cao Cao's troops were newly recruited and outnumbered. The result was a crushing defeat. Cao Cao himself was hit by a stray arrow, and his horse was injured. Fortunately, his cousin Cao Hong gave him his own horse, saying, "The world can do without me, Cao Hong, but it cannot do without you." This allowed Cao Cao to escape under the cover of night. Returning to the coalition camp, Cao Cao saw the so-called allies still feasting and became even more furious. He proposed another battle plan, but his strategic vision was once again ignored by the short-sighted warlords. Completely disheartened, Cao Cao realized he could not achieve anything with these men. He left with his remaining troops to recruit more soldiers. Soon after, the Eastern Coalition dissolved due to internal conflicts over supplies. After leaving the coalition, Cao Cao began an exceptionally difficult period of building his power base. After some initial setbacks and rebellions among his new recruits, he attached himself to Yuan Shao. An opportunity arose when the Black Mountain bandits attacked Dong Commandery. Cao Cao seized the chance, defeated the bandits, and Yuan Shao, seeing his ability, appointed him as the governor. Cao Cao finally had his own stable territory. In Dong Commandery, Cao Cao began to recruit talented men. Sun Yu, who would become his chief advisor, left Yuan Shao to join him. Cao Cao was overjoyed, exclaiming, "You are my Zhang Liang," comparing him to the key advisor of the Han Dynasty's founder. A greater opportunity appeared in 192 AD. The Yellow Turban remnants in Qing province launched a massive uprising, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, and marched towards Yan province. The provincial inspector, Lu Dai, was killed in battle, leaving the province leaderless. At this critical moment, Cao Cao's old friends and supporters nominated him to be the governor of Yan province. Cao Cao accepted the dangerous task. After initial fierce battles and suffering a painful loss when his trusted general Bao Xan was killed, Cao Cao changed his strategy. He avoided direct confrontation and used flexible tactics, eventually defeating and forcing the surrender of the massive Yellow Turban army. He incorporated over 300,000 of their soldiers and over 1 million of their family members into his domain. From these, he selected the strong and experienced to form an elite unit known as the Qingzhou Corps. This was a pivotal turning point in Cao Cao's life. He now had a province, a powerful army, and a huge population base. He had become a major power, capable of contending for the Central Plains. However, the path of ambition is never smooth. A huge crisis descended in 194 AD. Cao Cao's father, Cao Song, was murdered by the subordinates of Tao Qian, the governor of Su province, while traveling to join his son. Grief-stricken and enraged, Cao Cao vowed revenge. He launched 2 massive campaigns against Su province. His attacks were ferocious, and in his fury he conducted brutal massacres, killing hundreds of thousands of civilians. This cruel act is an indelible stain on his life. Just as Cao Cao was pressing his attack, his own backyard caught fire. His most trusted old friend Zhang Miao, and a strategist he had taken in, Qin Gong, betrayed him. They took advantage of his absence to welcome the wandering warlord Lu Bu into Yan province. Lu Bu was renowned as the fiercest warrior of the age. With his arrival, most of Yan province defected. Overnight, Cao Cao's base was reduced to just 3 counties, desperately defended by his loyalists. The news was a thunderbolt from a clear sky. Cao Cao immediately abandoned his campaign and rushed back. A desperate struggle for survival began. The war against Lu Bu was incredibly harsh and brutal. There were fierce seesaw battles, and during one, Cao Cao was nearly captured. In another, he was burned and wounded in street fighting. The war lasted for 2 years, devastating the land. Ultimately, thanks to his indomitable will, superior strategy, and the advice of his counselors, Cao Cao gradually turned the tide. He defeated Lu Bu, who fled to Su province to join Liu Bei. Cao Cao had finally retaken Yan province. This crisis was the greatest he had ever faced, nearly destroying him, but it also tempered his will and ability, and purged the instabilities within his domain. While Cao Cao was busy pacifying Yan province, the situation in the capital changed again. Dong Zhuo had been assassinated, but his generals, Li Ju and Guisi, seized control of Chang'an and the emperor. Soon they began fighting each other, and Emperor Xian, along with a group of officials, managed to escape in 196 AD and return to the dilapidated old capital, Luoyang. They were in a miserable state without shelter or food. News of the emperor's return attracted the attention of the warlords. Yuan Shao's advisor, Zhu Shou, shrewdly advised him to welcome the emperor to his own territory so he could hold the emperor hostage to command the nobles. However, Yuan Shao, indecisive and wary of having a superior, hesitated and missed this golden opportunity. This indecision gave Cao Cao his chance. His advisor Sun, you made the same suggestion. Welcome the Son of Heaven too. Follow the people as will. Cao Cao, a pragmatist, immediately grasped the immense political significance. He didn't care who had enthroned the emperor. He cared about the tangible political advantage it offered. After an initial setback, Cao Cao personally led his troops to Luoyang, showcasing his military strength and loyalty to the court. In August 196 AD, he successfully escorted Emperor Xian from the ruins of Luoyang to his own power base in Su County, modern-day Xuchang, Hunan, which became the new capital, Shudu. Emperor Xian appointed Cao Cao Grand General. Although he later yielded this title to Yuan Shao to placate him, taking the post of Minister of Works, Xikong, instead real power was firmly in his hands. Holding the emperor hostage to command the nobles was the most successful and far-reaching move of Cao Cao's political career. The benefits were immediate and immeasurable. Political high ground. All his actions could now be justified as serving the Son of Heaven to punish the unrighteous, giving him supreme political legitimacy. Talent magnet. Scholars and officials loyal to the Han court flocked to Shudu, greatly strengthening his think tank and bureaucracy. Diplomatic initiative. He could issue edicts in the emperor's name to command or win over other warlords. Economic and military convenience. Controlling the court meant, in name, he could command more resources and population. Of course, this move also made him a target for other ambitious warlords like Yuan Shao. He had to carefully manage the delicate balance of power with Emperor Xian and the loyalists around him, a challenge that required supreme political skill. Nevertheless, moving the capital to Shudu was the key turning point that set Cao Cao on the path to hegemony and laid the political foundation for unifying northern China. With the emperor as his trump card, Cao Cao began to consolidate and expand his power, focusing on eliminating his rivals one by one. His first targets were Yuan Shu to the south and Lu Bu to the east. Yuan Shu foolishly declared himself emperor, making himself a public enemy. Cao Cao, in the name of the court, led a coalition that crushed him. Next was Lu Bu in Su province. After a long and difficult siege of Lu Bu's stronghold at Xiapi, which included flooding the city with river water, Lu Bu's own men mutinied, tied him up and surrendered. The formidable warrior was executed. With this, Cao Cao had eliminated his most powerful eastern rival. At the same time, Cao Cao did not forget to strengthen his home base. He vigorously promoted the Tunshan system, agricultural garrisons, organizing displaced peasants to cultivate state-owned land. This policy not only solved the refugee problem and stabilized society but, more importantly, provided his army with a stable and abundant food supply. This strong logistical support was a crucial material basis for his ultimate victory. After clearing the obstacles to his south and east, Cao Cao's gaze finally turned north to his most formidable rival, Yuan Shao, who controlled 4 provinces and was recognized as the most powerful warlord in the land. His territory was vast. His army was massive, reportedly over 100,000 strong, and he had many talented advisors and generals. In comparison, Cao Cao was at a disadvantage in both territory and manpower. When Yuan Shao prepared to march south, a sense of fear permeated Cao Cao's camp. However, Cao Cao and his core advisors, especially Sun Yu and Guojia, remained remarkably calm. Guojia proposed his famous 10 victories and 10 defeats theory, systematically analyzing Yuan Shao's weaknesses, such as being indecisive, nepotistic, and ignorant of military essentials, against Cao Cao's strengths in pragmatism, decisiveness, and meritocracy. This analysis greatly boosted morale. Cao Cao himself said, "I know Yuan Shao well. He has great ambition but little wisdom. His land may be vast and his grain plentiful, but it is merely a gift for me. The Battle of Guandu officially erupted in 200 AD. In the initial stages, Cao Cao scored key victories at Boma and Yanjin, where his general Guan Yu famously slew Yuan Shao's top generals, Yan Liang and Wen Chou, dealing a heavy blow to the enemy's morale. The two armies then faced off in a stalemate at Guandu. As time wore on, Cao Cao's disadvantage in supplies became critical, and he considered retreating. But a firm letter from Sun Yu convinced him to hold on, arguing that a turning point was imminent. The turning point came, dramatically. Yuan Shao, advisor Su Yu, defected to Cao Cao after a personal grievance. Cao Cao was so overjoyed that he ran out, barefoot, to greet him. You brought a critical piece of intelligence. Yuan Shao's entire grain supply was stored at a lightly guarded depot called Wuchao. Cao Cao immediately decided on a daring gamble. He personally led 5,000 elite cavalry on a secret night raid. At dawn, they launched a surprise attack on Wuchao. Yuan Shao made a fatal error in judgment, sending his main force to attack Cao Cao's empty main camp instead of reinforcing Wuchao. The attack on the camp failed, and Cao Cao's forces successfully burned the entire grain supply. The news of Wuchao's destruction caused Yuan Shao's army to collapse. His generals Zhang He and Gao Lan defected. Yuan Shao himself fled back to the north with only 800 personal guards. Cao Cao had won a decisive victory. When sorting through the spoils, he found many letters from his own officials who had secretly communicated with Yuan Shao. Instead of punishing them, he ordered all the letters to be burned, saying, "When Yuan Shao was so strong, even I was not sure of myself. How can I blame others?" This magnanimous act stabilized his camp. The Battle of Guandu is a classic example of defeating a superior force with an inferior one. Completely changed the strategic landscape of the north and laid the foundation for Cao Cao's unification of the region. After Guandu, Yuan Shao's power base crumbled further after his death in 202 AD, which led to infighting between his sons. Cao Cao expertly exploited this internal conflict, defeating them one by one. By 205 AD, he had conquered their main territories. To eliminate the last remnants who had fled north to join the Wuhuan tribes, Cao Cao launched a risky long-distance expedition in 207 AD. Against the advice of many generals, he followed Guijia's counsel, took a treacherous and abandoned shortcut through the mountains, and achieved complete surprise. At the Battle of White Wolf Mountain, he crushed the Wuhuan forces, killed their leader, and forced the remaining Yuan brothers to flee further to Liaodong, where they were eventually killed by the local governor, who sent their heads to Cao Cao. With this, Cao Cao had completely pacified the 4 northern provinces. This was the apex of his career. On his triumphant return, passing by the Jeshur Mountains, he wrote the magnificent and timeless poem, Guan Sanghai, Viewing the Ocean, expressing his heroic spirit. However, the campaign also brought a great loss. His most trusted advisor, Guijia, died of illness, a blow from which Cao Cao never fully recovered. After unifying the north, Cao Cao turned his attention south towards Lu Biao in Jing province and Sun Quan in Jiangdong. In 208 AD, he was appointed imperial chancellor, reaching the pinnacle of power. He then led a massive army south. At that time, Lu Biao died of illness and his younger son, Lu Tsong, succeeded him. Faced with Cao Cao's overwhelming force, Lu Tsong's advisors persuaded him to surrender without a fight. Liu Bei, who had been stationed in the north of the province, was caught completely by surprise and was forced to flee south. Many civilians, admiring his righteousness, followed him, slowing his retreat to a crawl. Fearing Liu Bei would seize the strategic southern city of Jiangling, Cao Cao led 5,000 elite cavalry on a forced march, catching up with Liu Bei at Changban. Cao Cao's cavalry routed Liu Bei's followers. Liu Bei barely escaped with his life, thanks to his general Zhang Fei holding a bridge and Zhao Yun rescuing his infant son. Cao Cao easily took Jiangling and most of northern Jing province. Intoxicated with success, Cao Cao sent a letter to Sun Quan in Jiangdong, boasting of an 800,000 strong army and demanding his surrender. This threat, however, pushed Liu Bei and Sun Quan into a swift alliance. Sun Quan appointed Zhou Yu as the Grand Commander to lead 30,000 000 elite naval troops to join forces with Liu Bei's 20,000 men. Although Cao Cao's army was large, it had serious weaknesses. His northern soldiers were not accustomed to the southern climate and suffered from widespread disease. They were also unskilled in naval warfare. To solve this, Cao Cao had his ships chained together to reduce seasickness, a move that would prove fatal. Furthermore, his recent easy victories had made him arrogant and complacent. The two armies faced off at Red Cliffs, Chibi. Zhou Yu's general, Huang Gai, saw the fatal flaw in Cao Cao's chained ships and proposed a fire attack. Huang Gai pretended to defect, sending a letter of surrender to Cao Cao. On a night with a strong southeastern wind, Huang Gai led 10 ships filled with flammable materials toward Cao Cao's fleet. Once close, the fire ships were ignited. Like fire dragons, they crashed into Cao Cao's interlocked fleet. The ships, unable to separate, were instantly engulfed in a sea of flames. The fire spread to the camps. On shore, Cao Cao's army was decimated. The Sunlu Allied forces attacked and Cao Cao suffered a catastrophic defeat. He fled back north with his remaining troops through treacherous terrain. The Battle of Red Cliffs shattered Cao Cao's dream of unifying China in one fell swoop. It firmly established the foundation for the future tripartite division of power among the states of Wei, Shu, and Wu. After the defeat at Red Cliffs, Cao Cao adjusted his strategy. He focused on internal stability, economic development, and consolidating his control over the north. He also worked to sow discord between Sun Quan and Liu Bei. His own power and status continued to grow. In 213 AD, he was made the Duke of Wei, and in 216 AD, he became the King of Wei. Though nominally a subject of the Han, his court and rituals were equal to that of an emperor. In his later years, Cao Cao's suspicious nature became more pronounced. He issued decrees to recruit talented men regardless of their moral standing, a pragmatic move in a chaotic age but also a reflection of his disdain for traditional ethical constraints. He executed many talented individuals he suspected of disloyalty, such as Kong Rong and Yang Xiu. The most symbolic death was that of his chief advisor, Sun Yu, who was forced to commit suicide in 212 AD after opposing Cao Cao's move to become a duke. This event marked the final rupture between Cao Cao and the scholar officials who remained loyal to the Han. His family life was also filled with tragedy. His first wife left him. He hesitated for years over choosing an heir between his brilliant but undisciplined son Shaoji and his steady, capable son Cao Pai, causing factional strife within his court. He ultimately chose Cao Pai. In the first month of 220 AD, the king of Wei, Cao Cao, who had commanded armies and dominated the political stage for a lifetime, died of illness in Luoyang at the age of 66. His final instructions were remarkably detailed and personal. He asked for a simple burial, with no grand tomb or treasures. He gave specific instructions on how to care for his concubines, even suggesting they could learn to make and sell shoes to support themselves. He asked his sons to distribute his leftover incense among his wives and treat the serving ladies on his bronze bird terrace well. These mundane, human arrangements show a tender side to the warlord, a stark contrast to his decisive and often ruthless public persona. Cao Cao was posthumously honored as King Wu of Wei in October of the same year. His son Cao Pai forced Emperor Xian to abdicate and established the state of Wei, proclaiming himself emperor. He posthumously honored Cao Cao as emperor. Wu, the grand ancestor. The Eastern Han dynasty officially came to an end. Looking back on Cao Cao's life, he is undoubtedly one of the most controversial and charismatic politicians and military commanders in Chinese history. He was a complex, multifaceted individual, an outstanding statesman and general. He unified the war-torn North, restored social order and economic production, and laid the foundation for the eventual unification by the Western. His military genius was exceptional. A master of pragmatism and intrigue, he was intensely practical. Holding the emperor hostage was the pinnacle of his political wisdom. He was an excellent judge of character and promoted men based on merit, alone breaking the aristocracy's monopoly on power. but he was also a master of intrigue, suspicious and ruthless, a reformer and a destroyer of tradition. He implemented significant reforms in the economy, politics, and administration. But by creating his own kingdom and hollowing out the Han court, he severely damaged the traditional Confucian ethics of loyalty to the emperor. A poet of great talent, he was a founder and central figure of Jianan literature. His poems, such as Short Song Style and Viewing the Ocean, are powerful and melancholic, reflecting the grim reality of his era and his own grand ambitions. His line, "An old steed in the stable still yearns to gallop 1,000 miles," has been quoted for centuries. A man of contradictions, he declared, "I would rather betray the world than let the world betray me," showing his ruthless side. Yet his final words revealed deep affection for his family. As the writer Lu Sun commented, Cao Cao was a very capable man, at the very least, a hero. Born into the family of a eunuch's adopted son, despised by the elite, he rose through the brutal competition of the late Han era with his superhuman courage, strategy, resilience, and pragmatism. He unified the North and profoundly influenced the course of history. His success stemmed from his deep understanding and application of the rules of a chaotic world, as well as his own outstanding talents. His failures and stains, the defeat at Red Cliffs and his massacres, exposed the flaws in his character and the limitations of his time. It was both the most dazzling hero forged by that dark age and a concentrated embodiment of its cruelty. The story of Cao Cao is a magnificent epic of a hero in a turbulent world, filled with intrigue, slaughter, betrayal, loyalty, ideals, and disillusionment. His life provides an incredibly rich and profound case study for understanding the politics, society, and the complexity of human nature in the final years of the Eastern Han Dynasty. The fact that his merits and demerits are still debated today is, in itself, proof of his indelible position and influence in the long river of Chinese history.